New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani has introduced a $127 billion preliminary budget and floated a potential 9.5% property tax increase, a prospective measure that could be used as leverage on Kathy Hochul and Albany lawmakers to raise taxes on top earners and corporations. Mamdani's administration has identified a budget gap of around $5.4 billion over the next 2 fiscal years. That gap must be closed to meet legal requirements for a balanced budget.
There are two paths to bridge this gap. The first is the most sustainable and the fairest path. This is the path of ending the drain on our city and raising taxes on the richest New Yorkers and the most profitable corporations. The onus for resolving this crisis should not be placed on the backs of working and middle-class New Yorkers. And if we do not go down the first path, the city will be forced down a second, more harmful path. Faced with no other choice, the city would have to exercise the only revenue lever fully within our own control. We would have to raise property taxes. We would also be forced to raid our reserves. To balance the budget as required by law, our preliminary budget takes the only path within our control, the second path. The options of the second path are the options of last resort. Options that we will only employ if there is no other means of arriving at a balanced budget.
The gap is driven by rising expenditures across several areas: sheltering and services for the growing migrant population, housing support programs including emergency rent relief and affordable housing development, labor contract increases covering city employees from sanitation workers to teachers, long-term pension obligations for retired and active municipal work. Additional pressure comes from operational costs in public safety, health services, and prior multi-year commitments that were under budget. To close the gap, Mamdani proposes two potential paths: raising taxes on wealthy individuals and profitable corporations, or, if that fails, increasing property taxes and drawing on reserve funds. The proposal has drawn criticism from city council members and community groups concerned about regressive impacts, while state lawmakers, including Hochul, have resisted higher taxes on top earners. So where does that leave us? When the mayor talks about closing a $5.4 billion funding gap, it reflects real costs that are outpacing current revenues and projected state support. A city is legally required to balance its budget, so that shortfall has to be resolved one way or another. So what happens if property taxes rise? Property owners will be forced to absorb higher bills. Landlords in all likelihood will raise rent, commercial operators will increase lease costs, and businesses will adjust prices. Cost increases across the board will ripple outward, renters will feel it, small businesses will as well. Now, I don't assume the mayor is naive. Mamdani is presenting this prospectively, and it may very well be strategic, signaling to Albany that without the authority to tax wealthy individuals and corporations, the city may have no choice but to shift the burden toward property. At the time being, this is leverage in a state-city negotiation. But are there alternatives worth exhausting first? Could we ask Washington for more money? Could New York push more aggressively for targeted federal assistance? Could enforcement be tightened to collect unpaid taxes and fees already owed? What about misaligned or inefficient spending across city agencies? Could that be identified and corrected? Could discretionary or non-essential spending be cut or reduced? What's most pertinent here is, does this approach distribute the burden in the most responsible way possible? If property taxes become the fallback, New Yorkers deserve confidence that every viable alternative was seriously evaluated, because once those costs move through the system, they don't stay confined to one group and they will become the norm. Let me know your thoughts.